The music swelled, the chandeliers glittered, and the hall overflowed with laughter. My sister's wedding was supposed to be a celebration of love, but for me, it became a public humiliation. While others feasted on lavish platters, I was handed a single piece of dry bread, as if I were less than family. People whispered, smirked, and stared. But what no one knew was that hidden in my pocket was the key to a secret that would shatter the celebration. Hours later, when my revenge video played before 200 stunned guests, the hall fell into a silence so heavy you could hear hearts breaking. Weddings are supposed to unite families, but mine had always been skilled at reminding me I was different. My sister, Alina, was the golden child, smart, beautiful, and adored by my parents. I was the shadow, the son who never quite measured up. The wedding hall was dazzling. Golden drapes swept down from the ceiling, roses bloomed on every table, and waiters in crisp uniforms carried silver trays overflowing with kebabs, biryani, roast lamb, and desserts that looked like they belonged in five-star hotels. Guests clinked glasses, laughter echoed, and the air buzzed with celebration. But not at my table. I sat at the far end, near the kitchen doors, as if I were an afterthought. My cousins were scattered across better seats, and my uncles laughed loudly from the family tables closer to the stage. I wasn't invisible. I was deliberately placed away from the spotlight. Finally, a waiter approached. My stomach tightened, expecting at least a plate of the same feast everyone else was enjoying. Instead, he set down a small plate, with a single piece of dry bread. I blinked. "Excuse me, there must be a mistake." He shook his head. "This was instructed, sir." And then he walked away. I looked around the hall. Guests leaned in to whisper, some smirking. My cousin Armand snickered loudly. Guess they ran out of food by the time it got to him. His friends laughed, their eyes darting toward me like hyenas circling prey. Heat crawled up my neck. My hands trembled as I touched the bread. Not because I was hungry, but because I realized this wasn't an accident. This was a message. From the corner of my eye, I saw my mother glance my way from the main table, her lips tightening into a disapproving line, as if my very presence tainted the celebration. My father didn't even bother looking at me. Alina, radiant in her bridal gown, caught my eye for a brief moment. Instead of sympathy, her lips curled into a smug smile. It was intentional. All of it. They wanted me small, humiliated, reduced to nothing at her grandest moment. I clenched my jaw and forced myself to eat that dry bread, every bite a vow. I wouldn't storm out. I wouldn't create a scene. Because what they didn't know was that tucked away in my pocket was a USB drive. A drive holding a video that would rewrite this night forever. And when it played, no one, not even the bride herself, would escape the silence that followed. As laughter filled the wedding hall, I chewed that dry bread slowly, each bite tasting like ashes. I wasn't just hungry. I was burning inside. It wasn't the first time my family had humiliated me. This moment was simply the most public. Growing up, Alina was treated like royalty. She got the best clothes, private tutors, the newest phone every year. I got hand-me-downs, lectures about being grateful, and reminders that I was the burden of the family. I still remember my father's words at dinner one night. If it weren't for Alina, no one would even remember we had a son. Everyone laughed. Everyone but me. And tonight, her wedding night, they'd outdone themselves. The waiter returned to our table, serving lavish platters to others around me. Meat sizzling, rice steaming, desserts dripping with sugar. I stared at my empty plate. Only that one piece of bread remained. I pressed my fingers against the tablecloth, forcing myself not to crumble. But instead of shame, a strange calm washed over me. Because unlike them, I had something they didn't. Weeks before this wedding, I had stumbled across messages on Alina's phone. I wasn't snooping. She had left it charging in the living room while she was out. But one notification changed everything. It was from a man who wasn't her fiancé. The texts were intimate, undeniable. Screenshots became my insurance. At first, I debated confronting her privately. But then, after years of being ridiculed and shoved aside, a darker thought struck me. Why protect someone who's never protected me? That was when the plan began. I stitched the screenshots into a video, along with recordings of Alina mocking her fiancé behind his back, calling him boring and easy to control. My stomach twisted as I listened to her voice in those recordings. She was living a double life, and I had the proof. The irony was sharp. Here I sat, treated like a beggar at my own sister's wedding, while in my pocket was the power to turn her grand night into ashes. I took a slow sip of water, scanning the hall. My uncles raised toasts. My cousins filmed TikToks by the chandeliers. My parents basked in the glory of marrying their perfect daughter into a wealthy family. None of them knew the storm coming. As the bride and groom prepared for the first dance, I tightened my grip on the USB in my pocket. It wasn't just evidence. It was my voice. My vengeance. And when I finally spoke through that screen, not even 200 guests could laugh at me again. Because laughter was about to vanish from this hall, replaced by silence so heavy it would haunt them for years. The lights dimmed, and the music softened into a slow romantic melody. All eyes turned to the stage as Alina and her new husband stepped onto the dance floor. Guests clapped and cheered. Phones lifted to capture the perfect moment. I sat in the shadows, clutching my glass of water, my throat tight. Around me, cousins whispered, "Look at Alina, like a princess. She really outshines everyone in this family." Her brother? He doesn't even look related. Their voices cut like knives, but I forced a hollow smile. They wanted me to break, to storm out. But I stayed, silent, invisible. The bride twirled gracefully under the chandeliers, her gown shimmering as the groom beamed with pride. Cameras flashed, applause grew louder, and I, her brother, wasn't even invited to the dance floor. I was nothing but a ghost at my own sister's wedding. And that was exactly what they thought I'd always be. But as the crowd admired her, my mind drifted to the video sitting inside the USB. I had watched it so many times I knew every frame. The flirtatious messages. The secret meetings. Her mocking laughter as she called her fiancé a wallet with legs. I had even added subtitles, ensuring no one could claim misunderstanding. It was airtight. Irrefutable. But I hesitated. For years, I had dreamed of being accepted, of having my family finally look at me with pride instead of pity. Part of me still wanted that. Still wanted to be invited into their circle. Then the waiter brushed past my table, collecting empty plates. He paused when he saw mine, still with nothing but crumbs of dry bread. He gave me a pitying look before walking on. And that was it. The last straw. I pulled the USB from my pocket and turned it over in my hand. My palms were sweating, but my decision was carved in stone. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. As the music swelled and the applause thundered, I rose quietly from my chair. Heads turned as I walked across the hall, not toward the dance floor, but toward the sound booth at the back, the hub of lights, music, and screens. The technician looked up, surprised. "Sir? Can I help you?" I smiled calmly. "Yes. I'm the bride's brother. I have a surprise video to play after the dance." She insisted. He hesitated, but my steady tone and confident stance convinced him. "All right. Give me the file." I handed him the USB. My heartbeat was a drum in my chest as he plugged it into the system. On the massive LED screen behind the couple, the words, "Special Video Tribute," flashed. Guests clapped eagerly, expecting a sentimental slideshow. But what they were about to see would turn the entire wedding into a funeral of silence. The lights dimmed further, and the words on the massive LED screen shifted. A tribute to the bride. Guests leaned forward in anticipation, phones raised to record. Alina clutched her husband's hand, smiling as though she expected a slideshow of childhood photos. My parents beamed, basking in the attention of 200 guests. But the screen flickered, and instead of baby pictures, a screenshot of a text message appeared. "Last night was perfect. I wish you were the one I was marrying, not him." Gasps erupted instantly. Heads turned. The groom froze, his hands still locked with Alina's, confusion spreading across his face. Another screenshot appeared. "Don't worry, he's clueless. He's just my ticket out of this boring life." The hall fell into chaos. Murmurs grew into shouts. A guest dropped their glass. It shattered on the marble floor. Alina's face drained of color. She lunged toward the sound booth, screaming, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" But the video kept rolling, recordings of her voice, laughing cruelly. "He's so easy to control. I'll spend his money while I see who I really want. The groom's hands trembled. He pulled away from her, eyes wide with betrayal. Guests covered their mouths, whispering in shock. Some even recorded the scene on their phones. My parents shot up from their seats, shouting at the technician, but it was too late. The truth was already out. Then, silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. 200 guests stared at Alina, the once perfect bride, now exposed. And me? For the first time in my life, all eyes were on me. The silence shattered with the groom's voice, low, trembling, but sharp enough to slice the air. Is this true? He asked, staring at Alina. His hands shook, but his gaze never wavered. Alina's eyes darted wildly. No. It's fake. Someone edited it. She spun toward me, her face twisted with fury. You did this. You've always been jealous. Gasps rippled through the crowd. 200 pairs of eyes turned from her to me. For once, I wasn't invisible. The groom's parents rose from their table, faces pale with rage. We trusted your family, his mother hissed. This is unforgivable. My father stormed across the hall, grabbing my arm. Turn it off now. You're ruining your sister's life. His grip was iron, but his voice was desperation. I met his glare with calm steel. No, Dad. She ruined it herself. I just showed everyone the truth. The groom shoved Alina's hands away as she tried to cling to him. You mocked me. Used me? His voice cracked, but his resolve was clear. He ripped off the wedding garland and threw it on the floor. Gasps and whispers filled the room. Alina dropped to her knees, sobbing, begging. Please, it's not what it looks like. I love you. But no one believed her. Not after those words, those recordings. Guests rose, murmuring, some shaking their heads in disgust. What was once a celebration had turned into a courtroom, and Alina was guilty in the eyes of everyone present. For the first time, my parents didn't look proud. They looked small. And I, holding nothing but the memory of dry bread, finally felt whole. The wedding hall was no longer a place of music and laughter. It was a battlefield. The groom's family stormed toward the exit, his mother declaring, "This marriage is over." Her words echoed like a verdict. Guests whispered furiously, some filming, others shaking their heads. The chandeliers still glittered, but their light now felt cruel, exposing every crack in the facade my parents had built. My mother grabbed my wrist, nails digging into my skin. How could you? You've destroyed us. Her voice cracked, trembling between rage and fear. I pulled free. No, Mom. You destroyed yourselves when you let her lie, cheat, and humiliate me my whole life. Tonight, I just stopped being silent. Her face went pale, lips quivering as she searched for words. For once, she had none. Then my father roared, stepping toward me with fists clenched. Ungrateful son. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us. I laughed bitterly, the sound startling even me. Everything? You gave me scraps, while she got banquets. You gave me insults, while she got praise. Tonight, you gave me dry bread, while everyone else feasted. And you thought I'd stay quiet? The crowd murmured in agreement. Someone whispered, "He's right." Another guest muttered, "How could they treat their own son that way?" For the first time, the weight of public judgment wasn't crushing me. It was crushing them. Alina was still sobbing on the floor, makeup streaked, her gown stained with tears. The groom had vanished with his family. The celebration was ashes. My father's fury wilted under the stares of 200 witnesses. His fists dropped. His chest heaved, but he said nothing. For once, the power wasn't his. It was mine. And I realized something in that moment. Revenge wasn't loud. It was silent. The kind of silence that makes the guilty squirm, while the truth stands tall. The wedding hall was unrecognizable now. What had begun as glittering music and celebration had crumbled into whispers, shame, and abandonment. The groom's family was gone, guests were slipping out, and waiters stood frozen with trays of untouched food. Alina remained collapsed on the floor, her dress torn at the hem, mascara smeared into black rivers. She was no longer the radiant bride. She was the spectacle everyone wanted to forget. My parents stood rigid in the center of it all, their faces pale, their legacy shattered. My mother clutched her shawl tightly, as if hiding inside it could erase the truth. My father's eyes darted around, searching desperately for someone to blame, someone to side with him. But no one came. Not a single guest offered sympathy. Because the truth was undeniable. They had chosen their golden child, and tonight her shine had turned to ash. I rose slowly, brushing invisible dust from my suit. The same cousins who had mocked me earlier now avoided my gaze. The same uncles who praised my sister now whispered about disgrace. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. Not as a shadow, not as an embarrassment, but as the one who finally exposed the lies everyone else ignored. My father's voice trembled. "You'll regret this. Family is everything." I met his eyes, calm and unshaken. "No, Dad. Respect is everything. And you taught me that the hard way." Silence followed. Not the silence of shame weighing on me, but the silence pressing down on them. The kind of silence that empties a hall, that makes people bow their heads and hurry away, not daring to speak. One by one, chairs scraped back, footsteps echoed, and the grand wedding dissolved into emptiness. 200 guests, gone. Only broken decorations and ruined pride remained. I turned toward the exit, my steps echoing like a drumbeat of freedom. I didn't look back. Not at Alina. Not at my parents. Not at the wreckage they had built for themselves. Because this night wasn't about dry bread anymore. It was about the taste of victory. And as the heavy doors closed behind me, leaving the hall in suffocating silence, I knew one thing for certain. That silence was mine. Forever.